Welcome, everyone. My name is Jason Castellanos, and this is the instructional design proposal I've developed for Info 250. I'll be talking to you today about my instructional topic, which centers around technology centered classes that focus on computer literacy, internet use, and software programs. Now, before we get into the actual heart of the presentation itself, I wanted to give you some background on why I chose this topic in particular. And so, before we begin, I'd like to start off with a few interesting tidbits. So, the first is a quote by famous scientist Carl Sagan and his quote regarding technology, where he says, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." So I found this quote to be kind of important because I think what he's trying to convey here is that as our lives become more engulfed with advancements in technology and how we use them in our day to day lives, we still don't really know a lot of basic and general skills in regards to the very basics of technology. Now, to put that into some numeric terms, we have this report from the Pew Research Center that cites that nearly 90% of all Americans now own a cell phone, computer, MP3 player, game console, ebook, or tablet. That translates to roughly over 287 million people with some sort of technology device just in the United States alone. So, with these two factors considered, it really helped kind of draw my needs assessment and really understand why this is important. Not just in my community, but actually it could be adapted to many libraries in general. So essentially what we're looking at is we have a very specific set of students in mind when we're teaching these classes. So what we want to do is we want to target teen and adult library patrons. Our goal is to establish a series of workshops and computer classes that really help focus skills for basically anyone high school and above. Okay, so what does that mean? So that means that what we want to do is teach a broad range of classes that can go from computer basics, such as learning how to move a mouse and navigate a keyboard, all the way through using technical software such as Photoshop or 3D printing software, something in that regards. So let's go ahead and take a look at what some of our instructional goals are. So, in essence, what we really want to do is we want to gather a team of library professionals that will constitute some sort of technology group where we can develop original curriculum that provides information on a wide variety of different technology classes. So, what that'll look like basically is that what we want to do is establish classes on three different levels: basic, intermediate, and advanced, and allow users from all different walks of life and different skill levels to attend any range of classes based on their specific skill set. So, the reason behind this is that we understand that living in a digital age, it's more important than ever to provide our communities with the opportunity to advance their computer knowledge and skills. More and more, we're seeing a transition towards computer based services and functions in all areas of our lives. Hopefully, upon completion of these courses, we hope that our users should be able to navigate the internet, interact with social media, utilize email services, and become familiar with the most widely used software platforms available today. In order to develop these skills, again, as we discussed earlier, we want to develop a series of classes that will gradually build instruction up and teach more and more as that specific workshop progresses. So building these levels of workshops from basic, intermediate to advanced will allow patrons to adapt to their comfortability of their computer skills and attend the courses they think are best tailored to them. So let's take a look at our learners and some of the entry-level behaviors and learner characteristics. Well, due to the flexible and progressive structure of each subject, entry learners will not require any particular set of skills or knowledge in order to attend a particular class. Because each course will offer a basic level of instruction, then an intermediate, and then an advanced level, any novice student can attend a basic level class and learn as if they were using the program for the very first time. Additionally, all entry-level learners will be expected to gauge their own skill and knowledge level on a particular subject and give us feedback on what they would like us to cover. So let's talk a little bit about learning outcomes and motivating learners. So ideally, what we envision is that learners will take a very hands-on approach to the instruction, and each learner will be provided access to their own individual computer where they will be asked to follow along with the instructor as the instructor cycles through an interactive lesson plan. So learners will complete the commands in real time as they see their instructors moving along, and they'll be asked to eventually develop some sort of task that will culminate at the end of the course. This will help keep learners engaged because although they are receiving a lecture form of instruction, it's interactive and they'll be asked to follow along right along in a step-by-step manner as the instructor proceeds. So we hope that the motivation for these learners essentially comes from knowing that they are developing skills of modern technology that will help them in both their personal and professional lives. The proposed courses will cover some of the most popular and heavily utilized software platforms today, so learners can be confident that what they are learning is relevant to all aspects of their lives in the modern era. So let's talk a little bit about some of the information presentation. So as we stated earlier, we have the structure of the classes designed, but what we want to do is set up a foundation for all classes that follows the same uniform structure, and that is as follows. So we want to develop a lesson plan for a specific topic, dividing the topic into three basic levels: basic, intermediate, and advanced. We want to establish handouts and coursework that align with each subject. We want to prepare a 90-minute lecture with an additional 20-minute open space for questions and answers. We want to create a built-in class assignment wherever applicable so that it'll help gauge a student's progress. For instance, if we're working on a spreadsheet software like Microsoft Excel, we want to have an end project that culminates at the end of the class, and we can kind of tell whether users were able to follow along if they were able to mimic the spreadsheet that was designed by the instructor. Next, what we want to do is we want to provide an opportunity for feedback at the end of each course. And the way we do that is via survey. So essentially what we want to do is take student opinion and the ratings they give our instructors and the rating they give the information that we've given them and evaluate their feedback and use it to find ways to improve and grow and develop each course. So let's take a look at what essentially we want our outcomes to be. So when we're looking at the learner assessment, what we want to do is gauge the participation level. So the way we'll do that is again by developing classes that are tailored to encourage open-ended dialogue and questions and programs that keep learners engaged throughout the actual lecture. We want instructors that are enthusiastic about the subject and that ask the students or the learners whether they're absorbing the material or whether they have questions in the middle of the lecture. We also want to implement an assistant that'll help with questions mid-class so as not to interrupt the lecture for too long. But basically, we want an open dialogue between the learners and the instructors, and we want to keep them engaged and let them know that we feel passionately about the subjects that we're teaching, and we feel that they will apply to the skills that they desire to develop. So, in order to kind of test or assess the job that the students are doing, again, as discussed earlier, what we want to do is develop lesson plans that have some sort of end result or finalizing project or culminating project at the end of the workshop. So again, if we were teaching a spreadsheet software class like Microsoft Excel, we would want some sort of spreadsheet to be developed by the end of that class, and we could gauge whether patrons or learners were able to insert formulas properly or develop a specific graphic or perform a specific function. And that's how we would kind of gauge how the students were doing. However, in regards to instructional evaluation, uh, we're going to rely heavily on the feedback of the learners. That is how we will look to improve. And so what we want to do is we want to develop a very comprehensive survey. And this survey should cover a host of topics that talk about the overall performance of the workshop. So some of the subjects we want the survey to cover are as follows. So we want to hear about instructor performance, quality and relevance of the information, pace of instruction, areas for development, ideas for topic expansion, and ideas for marketing and promotion. So we intend to take every survey and analyze the information that we're receiving from our learners and use all the data that we can gather to find ways to improve in all of those different areas. That is my presentation, and I thank you for your time.